Lorenzo tells his son to wait in the car. While walking through the house, he sees that most of his guards have been massacred. When he enters the room, he is under the impression that his men have captured Robert. He actually allowed himself to be captured, to explain that he's only there because Lorenzo took something that did not belong to him. He starts the timer on his watch. And then, in about 9 seconds, give or take, Robert quickly eliminates his men one by one. He even manages to shoot Lorenzo with a gun that is stuck inside a man's head. After fatally shooting Lorenzo in the face with a shotgun, Robert makes his only mistake, which is taking his eyes off of Lorenzo's son, who manages to shoot him in the back with a rifle. He manages to get some distance between himself and the vineyard before passing out on the side of the road, where he luckily gets some help from an off-duty carabinieri officer. He takes him to the local doctor, who really seems to know his way around a bullet wound. Initially he attempts to leave, but the doctor and his body convince him otherwise. After 3 days of rest, he is able to walk with the assistance of a cane. At the local cafe, he encounters Gio, the officer who saved his life. Just like the doctor, Gio did not report a bullet wound. Instead, he reported it as a result of a bad fall. Robert contacts CIA officer Emma Collins, who is assigned to the Financial Operations Department. He informs her about Lorenzo's vineyard and the benefits of taking a physical access team there. At this stage in his recovery, it's evident that Robert is still unable to climb the steps from the piazza to the doctor's villa without the need to stop for rest. While out for a walk, Robert observes a gang of thugs extorting a local business owner. The expression on his face clearly reveals his frustration with the situation. Marco is the leader of the motorcycle gang that's been terrorizing the local residents. However, it becomes clear he is merely the muscle. His brother Vincent is the true brains behind the operation. His plan is to strong-arm the residents into signing over the deeds to their properties using any means necessary, including murder, with the ultimate goal of developing the land into resorts and casinos. The longer Robert remains in the community, he starts forming connections with the residents. Once Officer Collins manages to secure a physical access team, she and her superior come to the realization that Lorenzo's vineyard serves as the central hub for a substantial narcotics and money laundering network. The CIA has reason to suspect that the drugs, originally sourced from Syria and then repackaged before reaching the United States, may have ties to a terrorist group. While Robert gets his wound checked by the Dr. Enzo, we hear my favorite line in the whole movie.
Remember what I asked you?
Yeah. Am I a good man or bad man? You asked me.
And you said you didn't know.
I don't know.
Only a good man would have said that.
Vincent instructs Marco that it's time to increase the pressure on the townspeople to accelerate the progress of his plan. Robert, who had packed his belongings and appeared to be on his way back to Boston, had a change of plans when he noticed his friend Angelo, who runs the local market, had his house obviously set on fire by Marco and his gang. Between Amina giving him a tour of all the delicious foods that Altamonte has to offer, even though it appeared like a date to me, and the rest of the community welcoming him as if he were one of their own, it becomes obvious that Robert has found a new community and family he doesn't want to see taken advantage of. As Collins attempts to discreetly take Robert's picture, he proudly offers to pose for the next one. As she lightly digs for more information about the vineyard, he seems pleasantly surprised that she found him, as if he specifically chose her so they would eventually meet. Marco ruthlessly beats Gio in front of his family and threatens to kill his daughter if he doesn't stop his involvement in the investigation into who set fire to Angelo's home. After Robert notices the bandage on Gio's head, he questions the doctor about what happened. Enzo explains that the Camorra is essentially a mafia-like enterprise. He compares to a cancer affecting the town of Altamonte. When Robert and Collins meet again, she shares her intelligence that Lorenzo was wanted for cyber crimes, specifically siphoning money from government agencies and pension funds. She also presents her theory that terrorists were using his vineyard to smuggle drugs to the mainland. Regardless, both leave the meeting puzzled about why anyone would attempt to smuggle drugs into the most secure port in the region. Marco threatens Gio, insisting that he follows orders. Everyone in the restaurant avoids the conflict, except for Robert, who stares down Marco, as if he's welcoming the confrontation. Marco attempts to intimidate Robert, pointing out that he's involving himself where it doesn't belong. Robert states that he's right where he belongs and that he's now part of this community. He even offers Marco a chance to take his business elsewhere. When he gets too close, Robert takes control of him by twisting his arm and applying pressure to his median nerve. The pain is so intense that when Robert demands he sends his gang out of the restaurant, Marco has no choice but to obey. As everyone looks on, stunned by what just happened, Robert demands that he hands over his gun before releasing him and allowing him to leave the restaurant. Marco, completely embarrassed about what just happened, tells his friend to get the van. While they're debating whether they can kill Robert without Vincent's approval, out of nowhere, the person Marco is talking to is suddenly smashed into the wall by that van. When Marco checks the wreckage, he discovers both his friends are dead. While he's distracted, Robert crushes his remaining friend's skull with a wine bottle. Marco pulls out a knife, but he is outmatched, as Robert manages to break his arm and use it to stab him multiple times in the chest. The fatal blow is a vicious stab to the throat. Robert locks eyes with Marco as he's dying, before calmly leaving the scene without breaking a sweat. While searching Marco's van, the Carabinieri find boxes of a new drug that they have never come across before. When terrorists attack a train station in Rome, and the evidence points toward Syrian nationals, Collins's theory is that the money used to purchase the drugs to fund the attack comes from a source in Naples. We learn the chief of police is corrupt when he meets with Vincent to warn him about the CIA. He demands that Vincent shut down all his operations. He fears Officer Collins might find out what he already suspects, that Vincent bought the drugs that funded the attacks in Rome. When Vincent suggests he'll take care of Officer Collins, believing that more innocent people will die, the chief becomes adversarial. For opposing him and failing to provide information about his brother's death, Vincent orders his hand to be severed. He orders his men to transport him to the hospital for a reattachment, ensuring it's a constant reminder never to forget his place. Gio shows Robert the drug evidence from the back of Marco's van, and he instantly recognizes it. Collins is informed the chief's been attacked but has information for her investigation, and that an officer will escort her to the hospital. She stops to answer Robert's call. He explains to set her focus on the Camorra and to be careful, causing a delay and prompting the officer to get in the car. As she approaches the car, it detonates, launching her into the air. Upon landing, she's seen coughing with multiple injuries. The explosion results in multiple casualties and injuries. While in the emergency room, she informs her boss that it's not terrorists, it's the Camorra. While holding Gio at gunpoint, Vincent demands that the town of Altamonte deliver his brother's killer to him. When Gio won't tell him who killed his brother, he shoots off his ear. When Vincent threatens to kill him in front of his family, Robert interrupts, announcing, "It's me you want. I killed your brother." He offers to surrender himself, under the condition that Vincent doesn't execute him in front of the crowd. Nonetheless, Vincent disagrees, insisting that the crowd must witness it. But before he can pull the trigger, the crowd rebels by recording him and calling the police. When Vincent threatens to return and destroy the town, Robert asserts, "I'll be here, waiting for you." When his entire crew fails to uncover any information about Robert, Vincent, in a fit of anger, decides, "Tomorrow, we kill the American." At almost 10 o'clock that evening, a religious procession commences on the streets of Altamonte, with nearly everyone in attendance. Robert brutally stabs the perimeter guard multiple times after distracting him with a car alarm. The guard patrolling the downstairs interior gets a double tap through the window. After disabling the lights in the room, he permanently ends their card game with 3 quick headshots from just outside the open window. Robert provides the man watching the cameras with a hands-on lesson on how not to use a fire poker. Blood begins to drip onto his pillow from the window above his bed, as Vincent sleeps through the carnage going on all around him. Robert quickly loops a garrote around the neck of this formidable man, while he's trying to help his friend, who has a knife stuck in his back. Awakened by the dripping blood, Vincent narrowly escapes as his final guard crashes through the window, dangling above the bed by his leg, with a corkscrew jammed into the bottom of his jaw. Terrified, he desperately searches the house, hoping to find anyone from his crew still alive. However, all he discovers is the extensive death toll that Robert has left in his wake. After catching sight of what appears to be a shadow along the wall, panic sets in, and he begins erratically shooting, chasing the shadow around the room. He turns to exit the room and is struck unconscious. As his body lies on the floor, a handful of pills is sprinkled around him. We next see Vincent tied to a post, being taunted by Robert, as he literally foams at the mouth due to the unknown quantity of pills he was forced to ingest. After Robert releases him, Vincent desperately attempts to escape. He struggles to stay upright at times, and it's unclear whether it's the adrenaline coursing through his veins or the drug-induced euphoria that is keeping him going. As he tries to put as much distance between himself and Robert as possible, Robert slowly follows behind, looming over him like the shadow of death itself. As Vincent lies in the alley, dying alone, quietly and without celebration, it's ironic that at the same time, the religious procession, undoubtedly celebrating life, comes to an end with a loud display of fireworks and jubilation. Robert steps over Vincent's lifeless body and walks away knowing that the people of Altamonte are now safe. When Robert visits Collins, we learn that the lone reason he was at Lorenzo's vineyard was to recover $366,400 that belonged to Greg Dyer, a man he gave a lift to once. It's his pension that was stolen in a cybercrime 9 months earlier, and it's currently in his backpack that he leaves for her to deliver. When she delivers the money and witnesses the happiness it brings, she realizes why Robert does what he does. At home, we see Collins moving into her new office as part of her recent promotion for successfully breaking up a major drug ring. Inside the envelope is a note from Robert that reads, "Your mother would be proud of you," accompanied by a little black book with the letters S and P in the bottom right corner. If you remember when they very first met, she asked where he got the number to call her, and he said a little black book. Well, if you recognize her from the picture, the little black book just happened to belong to Susan Plummer, Collins's mother and one of Robert's most trusted friends and former associate. Finally, we see that Robert did not go back to Boston, he stayed in Altamonte, where, like he said, he found his community, he found family, and most importantly he found peace.